This is Share the Vision, presented by the Resource Center, a discussion of the programs and services of the Resource Center and about issues related to individuals with disabilities. Today, taking on the new year and New Year's resolutions. A year ago, we broadcast a very motivating program on this subject, and in consultation with Steve Watterson, we decided to air it again. It features Michelle Williams and Joe Sherry. Their roles at the Resource Center have changed over the last year. Let me explain. Michelle Williams, as we spoke to her about 12 months ago, was Director of Mental Health Services at the Resource Center. She's since moved on to other work. Leanna Luca Conley is now responsible for the entire mental health program at the Resource Center. Joe Sherry, our other guest, was, a year ago, the head of the PROS program, Personalized Recovery-Oriented Services. Joe's role has expanded at the Resource Center. He's now the program manager for the Resource Center's mental health programs in Jamestown, all of them consolidated at 880 East 2nd Street. I think that adequately sets the stage for this rebroadcast, except to say, joining me, as always, on Share the Vision, Steve Watterson, Community Relations Director at the Resource Center.
Happy New Year, Dennis.
Happy New Year, Steve.
Were the holidays wonderful for you?
Well, yes, but it's back to reality time, and the assessment of a new year seems particularly challenging, at least to me and my closest associates this year, for a wide variety of reasons. How about you?
Well, you're right. It's back to reality for everybody. We've gone through the hustle and bustle of the holiday season, and now people are stopping and taking stock of what just occurred and what's coming up for the new year. And as you mentioned, there are a lot of opportunities and some challenges. And we have some experts here with us today to talk about how folks can deal with both.
This is a show we do every year, or try to do every year, right around New Year's. And it occurred to you, as we looked at the scheduling, that some people at this point in January may have already failed in their New Year's resolution. So we want to offer some hope for them in the next half hour here.
Well, and hope for me, because I, as always, have already failed in my New Year's resolutions. But tomorrow is another day, and I'm ready to give it a fresh start.
All right. Well, let's listen to what the experts have to say here about how we can achieve and overcome what may be seasonal blues at this point in the year. Michelle Williams, with a lot of experience in the field. I think you'd be an ideal person to lift our spirits today.
Great. Good morning, Dennis.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, struggling a little bit with this new year for a couple of reasons. One, not only are there always challenges in life when you got a family and children and a budget and you get through the holidays, it seems easy to me to be kind of conflicted and unsettled as the year begins.
Yeah, absolutely. Most people have post-holiday type of blues, and some people are really, really looking at this time as a new year to start off their resolutions or start off their life in a different avenue, being more positive. And it's very difficult, though, with everything that's going on today.
Do you have any simple words of wisdom, advice that you can give us as we start this in terms of a mindset, perhaps, or a few simple actions we can take to make that process a little easier?
Well, absolutely. I think we are our own worst enemy. At times we can think negatively, and it really gets us in a bad mood. I think the point is we need to validate ourselves as we validate others. We need to take this time to accept the things we really can't change and change the things that we can when it comes to our thinking. It doesn't take any work to try to think positive. It doesn't take any work to try to be the best person you can. And if you're feeling down because you didn't reach that New Year's resolution, set a new goal. Set a realistic goal, something that you really feel you can attain that helps you in that positive thinking.
I want to get back to some of those points in a moment, but I want to wait no longer to bring Joe Sherry, Program Manager of the Passages PROS program in Jamestown, to the air. Joe, thank you for agreeing to spend a few minutes with us on this annual broadcast.
Thank you for having me today.
What is the nature of your work? Tell me a little bit about what you do as the Program Manager at Passages PROS in Jamestown.
Well, Passages PROS is a program, it's a personalized recovery-oriented services. So the program itself is really designed to help people meet those goals that they have set for themselves. If somebody is struggling with different things going on with their life, maybe depression or anxiety or some other things, and they really want to get back to work or be happier in their life or be a better parent, we help them achieve those goals. That is our aim. That is our goal. That is what we're trained to do, is to really just help people find ways of making it work.
You're going to be ideal in helping us through this conversation, I think, Joe, because one of the things that occurred to me as I came in here to talk at this point in January to you is the sort of emotional free fall that we can all get into. We spend a little more than we should have at the holidays, or we've got an illness that we didn't expect, or somebody in the family has come up with an emotional or a physical problem that we didn't expect, and so that makes us feel a little worse. Then we didn't get a raise for the new year, and that makes us feel a little worse. And then we pick up the newspaper or turn on the television and hear all of the tragic news that seems to be coming from all parts of the country and the world these days. There's a kind of emotional free fall that can occur. How do you help people who are in that circumstance stop that free fall?
Well, I think the important thing is to remember to think about what you can do every day. Not to focus on what's going on around you, what the things that are out of your control and the things that are happening that really have a bearing on the whole system but not your personal experience day to day. You have to really look at what you can do to make your day better, what you can do to make your life a little bit different than it was the day before.
Well, I think you've said something that I felt a little burden lift even as you spoke those words, Joe, because then the anguish that we feel about the winter storms that hurt some other part of the country, I mean, we really can't do anything about directly here right now.
That's correct. What we can do is make plans for ourselves. If we have something that we're concerned about, you can take the initiative to make a plan for yourself so that you're not the victim. You're not letting these events happen to you. You're being an active participant and as to the best of your ability to do the best that you can.
Think for a minute, Joe, because the people who come to Passages Prose, I mean, we think we may have challenges because we're dealing with the winter blues and the budget that won't balance and all of that. But some of the people who you have helped have brought in a depth and breadth of challenge that we couldn't even begin to understand. I mean, these are people who have faced some really severe issues in their lives.
Well, I agree that some people have faced some severe challenges, but they're still people. They're people just the same as everybody else.
So what strategies work for them? Have you cultivated with them that we might borrow from your experience and use in our own lives?
Well, staying in the moment, not letting things build up, dealing with your problems, and staying solution-focused. If you stay in the solution rather than focusing on the problem, then you're working towards what you want rather than worrying about where you are.
Can you give me an example of how to stay solution-focused? I mean, I think I understand the idea, but I don't know that I could walk out of here and implement it in my own life right now.
Well, you could focus on how you are short of money this month for food or for bills, and that is a very real problem that many people might be facing at this time of the year. Or you could look at ways to try and help yourself, accessing programs through the county, looking for part-time work, talking to your church, talking to family, friends, using the supports that are out there that can really help people just be able to live and survive.
So it sounds like a necessary step here is for us to come and see these issues in our lives sort of objectively. This is a problem I have to deal with instead of being haunted by it or hiding from it or ignoring it. I really need to look at it, perhaps with the cooperation of a trained professional such as yourself, so that I'm maybe a little less afraid to look at it, and then sort of slice it and dice it, take it apart, and try and find some way to begin to work on it.
That's very true. The longer you ignore it, the more the problem complicates. You're not going to have any more money tomorrow than you do today necessarily, but you might owe more money. Another bill might come in, interest might collect. Trying to resolve the problems when they come up rather than letting them accumulate and become much bigger and more complex. There's also an effect where if you start looking at the problem, you start magnifying it. You make it bigger than it necessarily is, and before you know it, it becomes something that's so big or so terrifying that you don't want to deal with it. And then you feel paralyzed, and that is not the feeling that you want. You don't want to be paralyzed. You want to work. You want to try and find that solution and resolve the problem.
I have only one phrase in response to what you said, and I think, to be honest with the people in the room, at the audience, guilty as charged, because I think I can see myself doing that from time to time about frustrations in the technological world of broadcasting or issues at home. I think we can all get a little monomania at times.
Very true. I think that happens to everybody, that they find themselves overwhelmed and possibly fearful or paralyzed with just not sure where to go or how to do it. And that's a normal human experience. I mean, we're all human. We're all imperfect. But when you have the experience and you've been through it once before, then you have a chance to step back and reevaluate and say to yourself, did that work out to the way I wanted it? Or is there something more that I would have wanted from that experience? And what do I do to get myself that positive thing that I want?
Whether it's someone who works in the field, such as you do, or just a friend or a relative, is it good at that point to engage in a relationship with somebody and kind of lay out the issues or the problems and sort of bring in a partner or partners to help you solve them? Or are these things better done privately?
Well, I think it's always better to use the people who are in your life. Use your significant other, use your family, use your friends. Talk to them. Let them know what you're struggling with. They might not necessarily be able to hand you a check or whatever to make the problem go away, but they might be able to just give you a different perspective or a different way of looking at the issue that really makes things click for you so that you can find the solution.
I'm going to get Michelle to respond to some of the things that you've said here, because I've been watching her out of the corner of my eye, and she has some things to say, I know. But I have two other questions that I want to ask you, Joe. One is, on the basis of your experience, how long does it take for us to begin to turn around from that emotional free fall, or from the being overwhelmed with the burden of the cares and responsibilities of our lives? Because I have a sense in myself, and maybe in the culture in general, that we want instant solutions, and they may not come that quickly.
No, nothing is ever instant. And it's really going to be different for each person that comes through the door, or each problem, really. There is not going to be a set timeline of this is going to happen and then this is going to happen.
So you can't say 3 months or 6 months or a year. I mean, it really varies too much to even put any kind of timeline on it.
I believe it does. Everybody's different, and everybody approaches problems differently. So what some people might meet, some challenge that one person might meet in a couple of days, another person might work at for a couple of weeks. But that other person might meet another challenge very quickly where that other someone else might struggle. So it really is just a matter of who you are and how things go and what kind of clicks for you.
Listening to you and the wisdom and the reassurance that you give us causes me to ask Joe how you got interested in this field. Give us the thumbnail biography of your work in this area to give you the kind of wisdom that you've been sharing with us.
Well, when I was a freshman in college, my father passed away, and I kind of found myself at a point in my life where I wasn't really sure where to go, and I was taking some psychology classes, and they really clicked. With everything else that I was experiencing at the time, they were something that I found very easy, very interesting, and something that I enjoyed, so I kind of gravitated that way.
And you have been working and continuing to educate yourself in the field since then?
Yeah, after I graduated from Edinburgh University with a bachelor's in psychology, I went back to the University at Buffalo for my MSW, and since then I've had several trainings in various areas of interest.
I make a New Year's resolution here. I resolve to get back to you one more time before our time runs out today to talk about resolutions, but I want to get over to Michelle Williams because Joe said a lot of interesting things there about helping us through what can be a bleak time, and I saw you responding, as I mentioned earlier. What do you want to say about the strategies that he laid out for us?
As he was talking, I just found myself constantly shaking my head in agreement with everything that he was saying. There's some people who have situational depression or environmental depression where some things happen in their life that they have a hard time coping with. When that happens chronically, that's really the way mental health issues develop. Somebody with severe depression or anxiety because there is a constant stress on the system, either emotionally or mentally, and a lack of ability to deal with the day-to-day situations, as Joe said, it can trigger some of these mental health illnesses. So I look at it that every person is resilient. Everybody has strengths. And if we just learn to adapt that strength and resiliency to our problems and find solutions, we are much better apt to cope with everyday life, and plus what's going on with the things in the world around us that we can't seem to even put our hands around right now. It's pretty traumatic.
I had an image in my mind as you spoke about that, the gnawing problems that can come to us. And you'll laugh at me when I say it's a pair of shoes, because I have a particular pair of shoes, and I'm not sure I figured out which one they are yet, that gnaw at the back of my feet. And I know, I saw it immediately in that particular perspective, that if I don't take care of them, they just keep gnawing away and the problems get worse.
Absolutely. Throw those old shoes away.
Touché.
If they're constantly bothering you, it's time to really do an inventory of your life. What's working well and what's not? What things can you change? What things can't you change? And really feel empowered to make some major changes in your life by the way you react to situations. I always say that I'm powerless over everything but myself and my thinking and my thoughts. If I come into a situation and really I can change me in the way I look at it, I can be more positive, which again, better outcomes in the long run.
I just want to step in here long enough to say you're listening to Share the Vision, presented by the Resource Center on WJCN, and the rebroadcast of our New Year's resolution show from a year ago. Speaking in this segment, Michelle Williams, who was at that time the Director of Mental Health Services at the Resource Center. That work is now being done by Leanna Luca Conley. As the program moves on, we're going to shift the perspective a little bit on taking a look at a new year. I want to switch the focus of this discussion for the remaining minutes, the second half of this program today, to a more positive one. Perhaps for those people who aren't really struggling with the winter blues, but they'd like to lose that 5 pounds, or they'd like to make good on that gym membership that another family member gave them. The actual setting and successful execution of resolutions. What can you say to our audience for people who might be making that list, or as poor Mr. Watterson said at the beginning of the program, might have thrown the list away already?
I would just like to say, just do it. Like the Nike slogan, really only you can change you. And if you have some goals you want to meet, take 1 foot forward and get to that goal. Small objectives, small things that make you feel good about yourself. If it's really that important to you, you really just need to go out and do it.
Okay, 1 resolution, or 10, or 100? Should I write them down? Should I tell my friend Steve Watterson, to tell my wife? Counsel me a little bit, Michelle.
Well, I would say since everybody is unique, Dennis, I would need to know exactly what you wanted to achieve. If it was something that was easily attainable pretty quickly with little effort, go and do it now. If you want to put a list and kind of prioritize what your goals are and then take them 1 goal at a time, then do that. I think you need to figure out what works for you, and I would encourage the listeners to as well. Figure out what works for them and then just have at it.
So there is a possibility that somebody who even had a very detailed and long list of resolutions, if they approached them with the proper mindset, they might be able to do all of them.
Oh, absolutely. What I like to do when I feel overwhelmed is I have a list, and then I can visually look at that list and check off the things I've completed. If they work well with that, make the list, check them off. You feel better about yourself even if you accomplish little goals. It just gives you that kind of strength and push you need to accomplish the big ones.
I know that you, in your career as a clinician as well as an administrator, have helped many, many people through deep and dark struggles that would be very foreboding to a lot of us. What, from that experience, can you share with us in terms of strategies that you've seen them use or that you have cultivated with them that are successful?
The people that I see that are successful in overcoming some of their traumatic issues or struggles are those ones that utilize other support systems. They don't go through it alone. Nobody has to go through anything alone. There's always somebody or something out there, some type of a natural support, or as Joe mentioned, a church, an agency, counseling centers. And we really need to encourage people to seek out help, and it's the stigma that is the reason why people don't always seek out help. So we need to help people overcome that stigma and say it's okay to come out and get help you need.
Since you have brought us to this point, let's talk about the help that's available through the Resource Center, not only for the consumers at the Resource Center, but to all of us in the general public, because you really can help all of us.
Oh, absolutely. I think we need to overcome the idea that only people with chronic problems or chronic issues need to get help. Absolutely not. We have counseling services here at the Resource Center for anybody and everybody that's experiencing life stressors, from depression to grief to anxiety, whatever it might be. Someone can come into our program. We could do an evaluation or assessment and really make some recommendations or give them an idea of where to go from there.
How do you access those services? How do you take the first step if people have, if they're writing down the same list of resolutions that they had last year and the year before that, and maybe they've fallen off the wagon a little bit already this year and really would seek that professional advantage or that professional help, what's the first step for them to take?
Well, I think the first step is if somebody wants to either remain anonymous or just look up information on their own. The Resource Center has a wonderful website with our counseling and psychiatric services programs listed there. We have links to many different self-help groups, advocacy programs, other counseling centers. We have links to pamphlets and information on mental health issues, or they could also always call us. We have 4 different programs within the county.
And eventually you would really need to take the initiative to make that call or contact via email or something like that to actually begin a counseling program.
Oh, absolutely. Once that initiative is taken, I think that's the hardest step people have, is that just that first step of calling or contacting a program. But once that's done, we could absolutely help you, we could channel you in the right direction to what agencies or services can best meet your needs.
Is there one number that we could give, Michelle, that people could reference?
Sure. 716-661-1590 is the phone number of our Counseling and Psychiatric Services program in Jamestown.
On Share the Vision today, we're rebroadcasting our New Year's resolution show from a year ago. You were listening there to the voice of Michelle Williams. She was, as we spoke to her a year ago, the Director of Mental Health Services at the Resource Center. She has moved on to other work. Leanna Luca Conley is now the Director of Mental Health Services at the Resource Center. You're about to hear again from Joe Sherry. He is currently the Program Manager for the Resource Center's mental health programs in Jamestown, all of which have been centrally located at 880 East 2nd Street and are available by calling 661-1590. Now back to Joe Sherry. Building positive resolutions. I just shifted the focus of the discussion with Michelle a little bit in that direction, Joe. And if there's anything you want to add, please feel free.
Well, I wanted to congratulate you on meeting your first New Year's resolution by coming back and talking to me like you said you would.
Thank you very much. That made me feel good.
But it is. It's a matter of. I think actually Steve, when we started off the program, mentioned that he'd already messed up all of his New Year's resolutions before he even really had a chance to begin. And when you take that type of look, then you're really never going to keep to them. If you take the idea that every day is a new day, and yeah, you might have been successful today, maybe tomorrow it might be more of a challenge, but if you keep working at it, as you go, it's going to get easier and easier to do, and you're going to be more and more successful at it, and you're going to really master what you set out to do.
Well, it's hard to get beyond the all or nothing the sensation or phenomenon thinking pattern that we often have at this time of year to begin with. In the January 1st, we were going to do it all, and then we didn't quite make it January 1st, so we tried the 2nd. That didn't work so well either. And then the 3rd and 4th, something happened to them. And, well, it's all lost. It's all lost. You're giving us a strategy to combat that mentality.
Well, why is everything lost in 5 days when you have 360 more to work on it?
I can't answer that, Mr. Counselor. I cannot.
If you look at the big picture and where you want to be, if you want to lose 10 pounds or 15 pounds, I think you mentioned something about that to Michelle a few minutes ago, and you do well for the first few days, and then maybe you have a candy bar on the 3rd day, does that mean that you can't reach your goal?
Well, we often feel that way.
But you might feel that way. That's the emotional response. But logically speaking, does one mistake overshadow all the progress that you've made or all the progress that you can make?
No.
And that's the mindset that people need to look at, is that, yes, one mistake happens, maybe multiple mistakes happen. That doesn't mean that you can't get where you want to go with a little effort and a little bit of time.
Thank you very much. Michelle, Joe was talking a little earlier in the program at my request about how his interest in this field was cultivated. I just want to give you a moment to speak to your background and interest in this as it started in your life and has grown.
Yes, I've been involved in the mental health or behavioral health field for the last 15 years, and starting work at WCA early on, I have a similar experience to Joe, where taking classes in psychology really seemed to meet my needs and answer some personal life issues that I was going through. And I knew that this was the field I wanted to be in. And I think it takes a special someone to work day in and day out with people, because it can be a very negative atmosphere. But every day when you're in this field, you feel like you're doing good. And really, I have learned more from my clients in my life than any other experience in my life, because they've been resilient and they've been such a part of what we do. Again, I've just very much enjoyed my years in the mental health field.
Well, and there must be a great sense of joy and satisfaction for you when you can see people with whom you have worked achieve their goals, to take what in some instances can be very, very deep struggles and leaving them very, very anxious or depressed or with other symptoms of mental illness, and see them turn it around. I mean, that must be deeply satisfying to you.
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing how just a little bit of validation and encouragement is all people need. And sometimes life is so negative and we never know what's going to happen. And just to be the one that helps guide that, or helps people really see they are resilient, helps people really see they do have a lot of things going for them, because it's very difficult. I mean, I always believe the brain goes straight to the negative, and it almost takes more work to be positive. However, that more work to be positive is well worth it. And we just need to be more on that.
The brain goes straight to the negative, Joe Sherry?
Apparently it does. I think it is easier to always find fault or to find something wrong with a situation, to give up, basically, rather than to keep working. And I keep coming back mentally to the idea that today is the first day of the rest of your life. And that is so true, that if you're trying to make change, today is the first day of the rest of your life. You have the rest of your life to work on getting the change that you want. And, today is just the start.
And I just have you comment as we finish on the level of satisfaction, the joy that you must feel, too, when you see people succeed after they have come with a lot of challenges and issues and uncertainties, and they get their footing in life.
Yeah, it's I can't even describe it verbally, because it just is so nice to see them learn, work, and master some of the things that they've been challenged with in the past, and to be able to pick up their life and move on, have a job for the first time, not fall into substance use, not fall back into some of the other patterns of bad behaviors or bad decisions, and really just be enjoying their life possibly for the first time in years.
I want to mention, as we come into the final minutes of Share the Vision today, that you're listening to a rebroadcast of our New Year's resolution show from a year ago, featuring Michelle Williams and Joe Sherry. Michelle was at that time the Director of Mental Health Services at the Resource Center. That work has now been taken up by Leanna Luca Conley. Joe Sherry, when we spoke to him a year ago, was the head of the Passages PROS program at the Resource Center, Personalized Recovery-Oriented Services. Joe's work has expanded some since then. He's now the program manager for all the Resource Center's mental health programs in Jamestown that have been co-located at 880 East 2nd Street and are available to you by calling 661-1590. And, of course, always on Share the Vision, Steve Watterson, Community Relations Director at the Resource Center. Steve Watterson, I'm going to put you back on the microphone here just to see if you feel any better about your resolutions at this point in the year.
I'm encouraged and hopeful, Dennis.
I'm glad to hear that.
I've got the whole rest of the year to make some positive changes. Thank you, guys.
Well, here we are beginning a new year of Share the Vision. I feel equally enthused after spending this time with Michelle and Joe. Is there anything else concerning the Resource Center as a new year begins that we should talk to the community about here, Steve, looking back or looking forward?
Just a couple things, I guess, Dennis. So one, the Resource Center, every year we have our membership program. Anybody is able to become a member of the Resource Center. We're a membership organization, and as a way of saying thanks for people to become members, we do have a discount program. If somebody gets a membership card, it entitles them to discounts at area businesses they can use throughout the year. Membership is only $5, so if you go to Applebee's once and use that discount, you've already covered the cost of your membership card. So if anyone is interested in TRC membership, finding out more about it, they can give the Resource Center a call or go to our website and find out some information. The other thing, too, is we're getting into the new year now, a lot of civic organizations, church groups that need speakers throughout the year. Anybody who wants to have someone from the Resource Center come and address their group, again, give us a call, give me a call, and we will set up a time to have somebody come and address your group.
Well, that's something we have not talked about on this program much in the recent past. What kinds of things can speakers from the Resource Center come and talk about?
Absolutely anything. I mean, as you know, Dennis, we have a wide breadth of services that we do here at the Resource Center, from supporting individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, folks who have mental health challenges. We have our work center programs, our employment programs, our health programs, a lot that we can talk about. So, in fact, if an organization wanted to develop a whole year to us, we could come up with a different topic every month.
Well, best of luck to you, Steve, as you take on those New Year's resolutions again with hopefully a new sense of commitment and enthusiasm. To Steve Watterson, Joe Sherry, and Michelle Williams, thank you for sharing the vision today. And Happy New Year.